A huge data breach into Northern Ireland's police services falls into the hands of dissident Republicans. The Chief Constable says he's convinced detailed information about thousands of officers has now been compromised.
We are now confident that the workforce data set is in the hands of dissident Republicans, and it's therefore a planning assumption that they will use this list to generate fear and uncertainty.
With dissident Republican violence on the rise, there are fears tonight for the safety of Northern Ireland's police officers. Rohit and John will give us their analysis. Also tonight.
It's devastating, man. It's devastating. This was actually the bedroom. Then there was a next bedroom, the bathroom, and a third bedroom. This part was the living room and the kitchen.
With nearly 100 dead and 1,000 missing, an eyewitness report on the fires consuming the Hawaiian island of Maui. It's been missing cancer targets for years. Now the NHS wants to do away with most of them. So is it burying bad news or streamlining treatment? The Lionesses versus the Matildas. England's players say they're unafraid of their Australian foes ahead of the World Cup semi-final down under. And the screams that greeted the Fab Four, what George Harrison's mum really thought of Beatlemania.
This is ITV News at 10 with Rageh Omaar.
Good evening. Given Northern Ireland's delicate policing of a still fragile peace, the industrial-scale data breach revealing sensitive details of officers and staff could hardly be more serious. The records of around 10,000 mistakenly appeared online last week. Each employee's surname, initials, their rank or grade, their base and units made visible to all. The information wasn't up for long, only around 3 hours, but that's all it took to spark alarm throughout the police service. Tonight, their fears were realised with confirmation from Northern Ireland's most senior officer. His inevitable conclusion that the document has indeed fallen into dissident Republican hands.
This brick wall in Belfast became the unlikely focus today of the growing police investigation. The ragged remnants of a few A4 sheets marked the spot where the names of some officers were placed alongside a sinister message. They were posted near the Falls Road. The Sinn Féin office is nearby.
It's obviously my photograph was on it, so it's to intimidate me, but it's also to get the publicity around the fact that they have this information.
But police then confirmed what they'd feared for several days. That the information that they mistakenly released last week is now in the hands of some of the people who might want to use it to do them harm.
We are now confident that the workforce data set is in the hands of dissident Republicans, and it's therefore a planning assumption that they will use this list to generate fear and uncertainty, as well as intimidating or targeting officers and staff. I won't go into detail for operational reasons, but we are working round the clock to assess this risk and take measures to mitigate it.
The breach came after a routine Freedom of Information request to the police, asking for details of officers. Those details were mistakenly put online and included the surname and the first initial of every police employee, their rank or grade, where they're based and the unit they work in. The details were quickly taken down, but tonight we now know they were there for long enough to get into the hands of dissident Republicans. Today, one serving staff member told ITV News they were considering leaving the force and leaving Northern Ireland. They said they feared someone might put a bomb under their car or hurt their family. They were scared by a knock at the door at home last week, and they don't think the matter is being taken seriously enough by the police service of Northern Ireland. Officers are at risk on and off duty here, and some have paid with their lives. Earlier this year, senior detective John Caldwell was shot and wounded while coaching a youth football team. The terror threat level was then raised to severe. 3,000 police officers in Northern Ireland have now contacted the Police Federation about a potential damages case. Anger, low morale and fear, and for many of them, this will be another sleepless night. Rageh Omaar, News at 10.
Well, John is in Omar, a town scarred by the decades of the Troubles, and also where we were hearing a police officer was shot as recently as February. John, this breach is really pretty serious for the police officers in the PSNI, isn't it?
Rageh, you know, it's a jaw-dropping security failure. Had it happened to any other police force in the United Kingdom, it wouldn't really matter. But it happened in Northern Ireland, where during the Troubles, more than 300 officers were murdered by Republican terrorist groups. As you mentioned, as recently as February, a dissident splinter group very nearly shot dead a detective chief inspector here in Omagh. And in response to that, serving police officers and former police officers began checking under their cars for booby-trap bombs and varying their routines in case of ambushes. And I suppose, Rageh, the big question tonight is how much more vulnerable does this breach make serving officers to dissident Republican groups? Our understanding is it's limited to surnames, first initials, ranks and police stations where officers serve. Thankfully, home addresses have not come out. It's a small consolation, but not much of one. I think the other big questions concern funding. Budgets are limited. How much compensation will have to be paid out to compromised police officers? Also, what will this do to confidence in the force, to morale and to recruitment, particularly in the Catholic community? Catholic officers are deemed the most vulnerable to paramilitary attack. Rageh, policing in Northern Ireland has always been very difficult. This has made it harder still.
It certainly has. John, great to have you there. Thanks very much indeed. John Irvine in Omagh. Now, it is sometimes said that even in the most tragic disasters, there is still somehow hope. But hope is in tragically short supply on Maui, where 2 survivors of Hawaii's catastrophic fires were painfully honest with Peter about their trauma and loss. He met them among the many returning to devastated neighborhoods, looking to see what little remains of their homes and of their lives. It is late morning on the island now, and this is the gym in Wilko serving as a shelter for the survivors and one of the centres coordinating the aid effort. The terrible toll of those who have lost their lives has now reached 96.
On Maui's west coast, the town of Lahaina is the epicentre of these wildfires, the deadliest in America for well over a century. Lahaina was Hawaii's ancient royal capital, now in ruins, a paradise lost. We've arrived to what is currently an active investigation zone, streets closed off by police and the National Guard. Those who were able to flee the fire have now been allowed back in to assess the damage. We join one family who see for the first time what is left of their home.
Just devastated, man. Just devastated. This was actually the bedroom. Then there was a next bedroom, the bathroom, and a third bedroom. This part was the living room and the kitchen.
For those who escaped this disaster, there is gratitude, but also the pain of now learning about the neighbours who did not.
Sad, but the only thing, my grandchild, they are okay. We are safe. I never think about the car already.
Your family's safe?
Yes.
In Lahaina, the burnt-out buildings have become makeshift graves. The dead are still being counted. Almost 1,000 remain unaccounted for. But there are no miracles here. No hope that anyone will be rescued now from these ashes.
Let's go!
And this is why it has been so deadly.
There's fire through there! Go!
Residents recorded their terrifying escape as flames ripped through the only road out.
You need to go, bro. Yeah, go.
In the next moments of this video, the body of a woman is seen unconscious on the side of the road.
Oh. Somebody's down right here. Somebody's down. Just go, Dad. We cannot do nothing for her. Oh my God. Oh my God, bro. Just go, Dad. Just go. Oh. We cannot do nothing for her. Just go. Go, people, go. Beat the word, Dad. Oh my God, bro.
Today, we found her family.
I came to do a DNA swab for my mom because I saw a video that went viral, and I know deep in my heart that that was my mom laying there on the road, which is
right
dead.
in front of her house, our family house.
Yeah.
As well as dealing with grief, they tell us about the trauma of their own escape.
Just pitch black, thick smoke. Couldn't see, just in the reach of my arm, I couldn't even see that far. The screaming, the yelling, the honking of horns, the sirens wailing, and embers flying, burning my hair. And
we're still missing a cousin that we don't know about that lived in the same home as
my mom.
My grandma, her mom.
You're not holding out hope?
Yeah, sure? I have no hope. No.
Winds of 80 miles an hour pushed the fire into the town. There was no evacuation warning. The fire was spreading so rapidly that when it reached the coastal homes here, some people found they were left with no way out. Roads were blocked, and in a moment of panic, people decided their only option was to jump into the sea and start swimming for their lives. People fought hard to live, but no help could get in until it was too late. The fire was so hot the entire structure of buildings like this were completely incinerated. Only a small section of roof now indicates there was a house here. We meet Ernest looking for information on his younger brother. He is among the missing.
You know, sometimes you just hope that maybe he went fast, just went fast and not suffer with the burns,
Helicopter teams are still dropping water on 2 wildfires that continue to burn on Maui. With so many already dead or displaced, and winds once again picking up here, people on this Hawaiian island can only fear what is on the horizon.
And Peter joins us from Maui tonight. I say tonight, it's tonight here, Peter, but it's just morning where you are, and another day reveals the grim work that continues on Maui.
Well, the governor of Hawaii is warning people here to expect 10 to 20 bodies a day now to be found and the death toll to continue rising. I have to say, though, from our team being on the ground and what you saw in Lahaina, the reality is that this is not going to be bodies that are being returned to families for burial. This fire was so hot it melted metal. Forensics teams are now combing through the ashes looking for traces of human DNA that they can positively identify, and that's going to be a slow and painstaking process. As well as dealing with the dead here in Maui, they're also trying to support the living. As you say, the main shelter here, there are 6 on the island. This is the biggest one at War Memorial. People together in a gymnasium for now. The aid you can see coming in, mostly given by locals. I think it's important to stress as well, we've heard from people here, there's criticism that these evacuation warning systems didn't trigger, that they didn't get enough warning to flee, and that's perhaps cost lives. We have also heard, though, from eyewitnesses telling us that there just wasn't enough time. The wind was so high, the flames spread so quickly that by the time the sirens were triggered, the flames were already right upon people's homes. There's also been criticism of President Joe Biden, saying that he should be here in Maui. But I think, again, Hawaiian people are telling us that it's not Joe Biden they need to see coming here, and all of the security measures that I would see, the airport closed, road closures, infringing on the efforts to repair the community. They're saying they want to see US federal aid ramped up, and they're also telling tourists to stay away. Unbelievably, tourists are still coming here. People, especially in Western Maui, are saying what we need right now is support to rebuild our communities and hope that this is the end of a disaster.
OK, Peter in Maui, thanks so much indeed. Here, and to what looks, on the face of it, a simple solution to the government's constant troubles with NHS waiting time targets. Abolish them, or some of them anyway. In their place, a new standard is being proposed that potential cancer patients in England are told whether they have the disease or not within 28 days. But critics have dismissed it as tinkering around the edges. What's needed, they say, is radical change.
When Shirley was diagnosed with breast cancer, she knew she faced a tough fight, but didn't anticipate having to battle for treatment when her symptoms returned.
Every day I was calling up, trying to reach somebody to get some reassurance that everything was okay, get an appointment for somebody to sort of check everything, but I was unable to get through to anybody. And so what happens then is it just becomes all consuming.
Now in remission, she remembers the toll it all took.
You're just lying awake every night, worrying about it, constantly sort of checking, have I imagined that, have I not, you know, and just really absolutely terrifying.
The delays didn't affect Shirley's outcome, but others aren't so lucky. After decades of progress, UK survival rates now lag behind comparable countries, and waiting times are the worst on record. The theory is that by streamlining cancer targets from 9 to just 3, the NHS will focus on catching cancers earlier.
Any changes that are made will be those driven by clinical experts in the cancer field and will be done in conjunction with the leading cancer charities. But what we're focused on is outcomes. What is the best way of getting the highest survival rates?
Among the targets slated to go, what NHS England calls the outdated ambition for a 2-week wait for a first consultant appointment.
But while there is some agreement that too many targets can be disruptive, one of the remaining 3 is a critical indicator because it's internationally recognised. Now, that target states that getting treatment for cancer within 62 days is key. NHS England aims to achieve that for 85% of patients, but last managed to do it in 2015. Yes, that is 8 years ago. Currently, only 59% of cancer patients are getting treatment in time. That means 4 out of 10 aren't. In 3 months alone, 5,640 waited more than 104 days, with international research showing that every 4-week delay in cancer treatment can increase your chances of dying from it by 10%.
All we hear is that everything's going to get better, and now we hear that it's targets, and that's going to get better. This is nonsense. We need to call this out, and we need to say we need radical change. We don't need small steps. This is the biggest cancer crisis of my lifetime.
And while a more simple system might make some headway in identifying cancer patients more quickly, that won't mean much if they're joining ever longer waiting lists. Rachel Younger, News at 10.
The stabbing of 2 men in South London is tonight being treated as a homophobic attack. It was, it appears, completely unprovoked. The pair were stood outside a nightclub in Clapham when they were attacked about this time last night. Police are still hunting the man responsible. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, called the attack abhorrent. Now, a development in the evacuation of asylum seekers from the Bibi Stockholm barge last week. We've learnt that at least 3 are now showing symptoms in line with Legionnaire's disease, and we've had more detail about who knew what, when, about Legionella bacteria found on board. Last Monday, results showing low levels of Legionella in the vessel's water system were received by Dorset Council, who informed the contractors. The next day, Dorset Council met them to discuss what to do. They say a Home Office official was verbally informed at this point, though the Home Office hasn't confirmed this. The local council sought advice from the UK Health Security Agency on Wednesday evening, but at this stage, the results being discussed were still low levels. More water samples were taken, but further results on Thursday are said to have changed the picture. The UK HSA advised that the newly arrived asylum seekers should be taken off. Shihab is here. Shihab, this still sounds, put it mildly, a bit of a mess tonight still.
Yeah, Rageh, as you say, we believe that at least 3 people are showing symptoms and they've been tested, and we're waiting for those test results. And regardless of what they are, and obviously we hope they're negative just on a human level, but regardless of their results, this is far from ideal for the government. This was a major development in the Stop the Boats policy. This Bibi Stockholm barge was supposed to be a deterrent for those who want to cross using small boats. It was supposed to help reduce costs of people staying in the hotels. And the fact that all these bodies are pointing to each other, there's a bit of a blame game going on, and the fact that this hasn't gone smoothly will be a huge concern. This wasn't going to be a one-off. The government is keen to have more barges like this across the United Kingdom. Now, I've been speaking to Tory MPs, and several have told me that stopping the boats comes up on the doorstep incredibly often, and heading into a general election, making sure that this policy is done well and it's done correctly will be a huge priority for the government and for those Tory MPs who are keen to keep their seats.
OK, Shihab, thank you very much indeed. To India now, where monsoon season has begun, wreaking a heavy toll in both damage and lives. Substantial rain caused flash flooding and landslides, killing at least 48 people and leaving many others trapped. It began over the weekend and has hit the mountainous Himalayan region in the north of the country. The state of Himachal Pradesh, north of New Delhi, is struggling to cope with roads that have been flooded and homes that have been washed away.
Oh, Bhagwan!
Intense and unrelenting rainfall, then landslides of awe-inspiring, devastating force. Here, an entire hillside seems to collapse into the valley below. It is sheer good fortune that the building in its path escapes destruction. Many more have not been so lucky. 9 bodies were recovered from a field of mud and debris that was, before the deluge, a Hindu temple. 20 more are still missing amid a rescue operation that continues in hope rather than expectation. The situation here is bad, says the state's deputy minister. The rivers are overflowing and there are flash floods. It is the season for rain, but this is far beyond a routine monsoon storm. As entire villages are washed away, activists say unrestricted building combined with a changing climate have brought ruin.
We have extensive rainfall in a very short time. Now that we are building, now that we are taking over such intricate, delicate landforms, we are bearing the brunt of nature's fury.
There have been dramatic rescues from the raging water in a region that is a popular destination for tourists at this time of year. But roads are now blocked and rail lines perched precariously in mid-air. Last month alone, more than 100 people died in the rains. Now residents and visitors are being ordered to stay home, to seek shelter and to try to see out the storm. John Ray, News at 10.
Well, a deadline has been set for anyone who wants to try to buy the struggling high street retailer Wilko. Potential bidders have until Wednesday to come forward with any offer that they may have. The household goods chain, with 400 stores and 12,500 staff, fell into administration last week. It's understood that PwC wants to strike a quick deal that could help save jobs across the company. Football, and just 2 matches stand between England and World Cup glory. But when the Lionesses walk out into the Stadium Australia for Wednesday's semi-final, they will do so knowing, of course, that the crowd's roar is not going to be for them. Instead, it will, of course, be for their opponents, the Matildas, who will have the home advantage. But that won't bother the England women's team. Just another game, Kira Walsh called it today, in what is just the latest instalment this summer of an intriguing and enduring sporting rivalry.
They're still not fully firing, but if you've won 5 out of 5 and reached a World Cup semi-final, then you must be doing something right. Standing in their way now, Australia, the hosts, and the oldest of enemies.
For us, I wouldn't say we're thinking about spoiling the party. I think it's just another game, and a massive game at that. So, yeah, for us, it's just fully focused on trying to reach a World Cup final, regardless of who we're playing. But yeah, I think obviously with the support from Australia, I think it is going to be a little bit different for them.
And this is the one that they were really wanted.
The rivalry crosses many sports, from netball, Australia beat England to become world champions earlier this month, to cricket. The recent Test series was drawn, although Australia retained the Ashes, and rugby.
Johnny Wilkinson, he's got it!
Wednesday's venue is where Johnny Wilkinson steered England to their World Cup triumph over Australia in 2003. The Matildas made it through to face England after a thrilling but physically and emotionally exhausting shootout against France. Every step of Australia's journey through this tournament has been devoured by fans right across the country. Television viewing figures for the quarter-final win against France were the highest since the Sydney Olympics 23 years ago. And politicians are even dangling the prospect of a public holiday if the Matildas become world champions.
To be as dramatic as it was incredible. Yeah. And you're right, it brought the nation together.
The team's success is the top story here on every TV news network. Wherever they are, Australians will find a way to watch. And even kick-off times for other major sporting fixtures have been moved on Wednesday, so everyone can get to see the game. What makes this matchup even more mouth-watering is that Australia are the only side to have beaten a Serena Wiegmann England team.
That was a friendly game, and yes, we do take something out of it. But at the same time, we're into knockout games in a World Cup, so it's a completely different game, and I think we won't sort of let the result of that last game that we played them sort of get in the way.
The Lionesses are in their third successive World Cup semi-final. They lost the previous two. If they're going to break that hoodoo, they'll have to do it in the face of an entire country willing them to fail. Steve Scott, News at 10, Sydney.
Good luck to them. Well, back here, the opening weekend of the Premier League came to a close tonight with Manchester United getting their season off to a winning start. But if they thought their home fixture against Wolves would be routine, they were mistaken.
Bruno Fernandes, nice pass, Wan-Bissaka shot!
It took until the 76th minute for United to get their goal in a match where their less illustrious opponents had the better chances. Rafael Varane was the goal scorer as his side won 1-0. There was also a late penalty shout for Wolves turned down. Finally, it was not just the sound of the Beatles' music that marked them out in the early 60s. The euphoric screams of adoring fans became a defining part of Beatlemania. But not everyone was convinced this was an altogether good thing. Newly discovered letters reveal one concert-goer's disgust at the behaviour of some so-called fans. The outraged audience member in question? None other than George Harrison's own mother.
Hysteria followed the Beatles around the world. And after the music came the mania. But the screaming fans did not go down well with everyone, particularly George Harrison's mother. Responding to sacks of fan mail, Louise Harrison wrote repeatedly to a teenager called Janet. In one letter, she said how she was disgusted at the way the so-called fans just screamed, adding, "I was really ashamed I was a female." The letter is from a collection going up for auction at the Beatles Museum.
A gorgeous set of letters, individually worth approximately about £100, £150 each, except for one letter which we expect to get probably about 1,000 to 1,200, and that's because it comes with a drawing of a guitar which George has signed.
The worldwide adulation was something the Fab Four themselves had to adjust to.
What's it like with these fans outside, Paul?
At first, it's murder, because, you know, it looks as though they're going to tear you apart. Once you get the hang of it, you get used to it.
It began in the early 60s, thrilling music lovers in Liverpool.
Well, it is 62 years since the Beatles first appeared on stage here at the Cavern Club. As you can see, the ceilings here are pretty low, which will have made for a very noisy crowd.
I've never seen the Beatles, but if I had have, I'd have screamed my head off.
I would have screamed.
Definitely, I'm a screamer.
A few years before that, the era was bad, and it was bang, they could really let their emotions go.
Mrs. Harrison also revealed she herself could scream at the amount of mail they'd receive. At least 3,000 letters to answer, she said. The price she paid for her son's success. Endless letter writing and the unwanted soundtrack from his millions of fans. Rachel Townsend, News at 10, Liverpool.
And that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Good night.